Welcome to Season 2 of the Complete AI Guide, your commute-friendly podcast brought to you by GeorgeAbbeyMatthew.com.
Glad to be back for another season.
Yeah, it's great to be back. And we have got some really exciting updates for you this season. We are going to be featuring executive leader interviews from time to time in addition to our regular formats.
Which I think is going to add a really cool new dimension to the conversations we have here.
Exactly. Real-world perspective. So please like, follow, share, and subscribe so that you don't miss an episode.
Definitely do that.
Now, for today's episode, we are digging into something that is quite literally reshaping how businesses operate.
Oh, absolutely.
We spent a lot of time just poring over our research, and it all circles around one massive central debate in modern enterprise AI.
Right. The big one.
Yeah, the question at the heart of it is this: how autonomous should we become?
And that is?
It is the question every boardroom is asking right now.
Yeah.
Like, when you are looking at deploying AI at scale, how much control do you actually hand over to the machine?
See, but the premise of that question is actually flawed right from the start.
Really? How so?
Well, how autonomous should we become? Sounds like a pure strategy question.
Right. Yeah, it does, like picking a direction.
Exactly. It sounds like a company trying to decide how aggressive they want to be, like for picking a speed on a treadmill.
Right.
But according to our research, it is not a strategy question at all. It is fundamentally a risk-related question.
A risk question.
Yes. If an organization treats autonomy simply as a strategic goal,
Like a race.
right, a race to see how hands-off they can get,
Yeah.
they are missing the actual challenge entirely.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's explore that disconnect, because it represents a major paradigm shift right out of the gate for our listeners.
It really does.
But before we get into the weeds, let's establish what we're actually talking about when we say agentic AI in this episode.
Good idea. Level set a bit.
We aren't just talking about a basic chatbot that drafts an email for you to read.
No, not at all.
Agentic AI refers to systems that can take multi-step actions, use different software tools, and operate autonomously to achieve a specific goal.
Exactly. They have agency.
Right. And historically, we are used to looking at technology roadmaps for these kinds of systems as this straight, clean line.
Oh, yeah, the classic linear roadmap.
You know the one. You start with a human in the loop,
Yeah,
right?
stage one.
Then you upgrade to a human on the loop.
Phase two.
And the ultimate goal, the finish line, is the human out of the loop. It looks exactly like a graduation plan.
Right, like you're moving from middle school to high school to college.
Exactly. The implicit message is that the humans are just training wheels, and the goal of AI maturity is to get rid of them entirely.
And we have been completely conditioned by decades of software adoption to think that way.
Really? Like, how?
Think about the move to ERP systems in the 90s.
Oh, sure.
Or cloud SaaS platforms in the last decade. The entire selling point was automation as a binary state. A process was either manual or it was automated.
Right. You automate it and forget it.
You install the software, you learn it, and eventually it just runs in the background. But as our research points out, applying that linear thinking to agentic AI is highly misleading.
It doesn't map over.
Not at all. If we look at this through a risk-based lens, those three stages, in the loop, on the loop, out of the loop,
Yeah.
they are not stages to graduate from.
So you don't leave one behind to reach the next?
Precisely. Instead, they represent a decision portfolio that an organization must actively manage.
A decision portfolio. I like that. So in other words, you have to decide exactly who is sitting in the driver's seat, who is in the passenger seat, and who is just watching from the traffic control tower.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
You don't sell off all your conservative investments just because you bought some high-growth stocks.
Right.
You need all of them serving different purposes simultaneously.
Yeah.
At scale, agentic AI forces a fundamental shift in how a business operates.
It's way bigger than just a software upgrade.
We are not just talking about adding a new tool to the tech stack. We are talking about the complete redesign of an organization's decision architecture.
Okay. That's heavy. A complete redesign.
Leaders have to understand that there are really only three actual postures an organization can take when designing how decisions are made with AI. It is an architectural choice, not a timeline.
Okay, let's break down those three postures, because this is where the theoretical rubber meets the road.
Let's do it.
Posture number one, the first loop. Our research calls this the editor, or the human-in-the-loop model.
The editor, right.
In this posture, humans retain the decisive authority. The AI is there to inform, to draft, to frame, and to accelerate the work. but the human is holding the pen at the end of the day.
Yes, and we really need to pause on a crucial misconception regarding this specific posture.
Okay, what's the misconception?
Because of that straight line myth we just talked about, a lot of leaders view this editor phase as a temporary training period.
Oh, I see. Like the AI is an intern.
Exactly. They think the AI is just drafting right now while it learns the ropes, but soon it will take over completely.
But that's wrong.
Completely wrong. Our research is explicit on this point. This is not a temporary training phase. It is the permanent home for non-repeatable, high-consequence decisions.
Permanent home. Okay, but wait. If we permanently leave a human in the editor loop for these decisions, aren't we just creating a massive bottleneck?
That is the common fear, yes.
Because it seems like it defeats the purpose of investing millions into agentic AI in the first place. If I still have to have a human review the work, where is the return on investment?
I get that logic, but the return on investment comes from what the research calls cognitive leverage.
Cognitive leverage.
Yeah, the AI is doing the heavy lifting of gathering data, synthesizing information, and presenting viable options.
Which takes forever if a human does it.
Right, that might be 90% of the time-consuming labor. The human is only stepping in for the final 10%, the actual application of judgment.
Ah, so you aren't bottlenecking the process.
No, you are drastically increasing the volume of high-quality decisions that a single human can make.
That makes total sense.
You have to ask yourself what exactly sits in this loop. This is where your brand reputation, your regulatory exposure, and your existential risk all reside.
High-stakes stuff.
Exactly. Agents draft, but humans decide. You cannot afford to have an algorithm making a final call on something that could tank your company's public image or trigger a massive compliance lawsuit.
There is a profound quote from the research that addresses that exact tension, actually. It says, acceleration is valuable, substitution is dangerous.
That is spot on. It perfectly distills the problem.
Right, so the value in this editor posture isn't full, hands-off automation. It's speed and better framing of the choices available to you.
You are accelerating the human's ability to act, but the accountability stays strictly with the human.
So you're not substituting the human's judgment, you are supercharging it.
Supercharging it while maintaining control. That accountability piece is non-negotiable in corporate governance.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
If a high-stakes decision goes spectacularly wrong, a regulator or a board of directors will never accept the AI made a mistake as a valid defense.
No, they definitely won't.
The accountability ultimately rests on human shoulders, which means the decisive authority must remain in human hands for those critical areas.
Okay, so it's comforting to have the human holding the pen in that editor role. But obviously, you can't scale a modern global business if a human has to approve every single microtask and routine transaction.
Right, that would be impossible.
So what happens when we move the human away from the individual task and just have them watch the overall system?
That brings us to posture 2.
Right. This is the human on the loop, which our research calls the circuit breaker.
The circuit breaker.
This feels like a massive leap to me. The human is no longer reviewing every draft. They are managing the ecosystem.
And this specific posture raises severe issues regarding hidden fragilities.
Hidden fragilities.
Yes. In the editor loop, the fragility is obvious. If the human makes a bad call, things go wrong. Simple.
Simple cause and effect.
But in this circuit breaker loop, our research highlights that this is actually the most fragile operating mode of the 3.
Really? The most fragile.
Yes, and ironically, it is also the least understood by executives who think they are playing it safe by keeping a human watching the dashboard.
Well, I can see why executives think it's safe. I mean, if the AI is doing the tasks and the human is watching the system output, shouldn't that act as a solid safety net?
You would think so, but the real danger here isn't one single bad decision by an AI.
Okay.
When a human is reviewing every task in the editor posture, a bad AI output gets caught immediately.
Right.
But when an AI is executing thousands of tasks autonomously, while a human merely watches aggregate trends on a monitor,
The risk profile changes entirely.
exactly, the risk is no longer an isolated error, it is cumulative behavior.
Cumulative behavior. That brings us to a really fascinating concept from the research. They call it agentic drift.
Agentic drift, yeah.
Let's ground this for the listener with a real-world scenario. Let's imagine an agentic AI is handling a massive volume of automated actions.
Okay,
Let's say it's an e-commerce pricing bot.
classic use case.
Its goal is to dynamically adjust prices to beat competitors while maintaining a profit margin.
Makes sense.
If it makes a tiny 1% deviation from the ideal pricing logic on a single transaction, a human watching the overall daily revenue dashboard would never even notice.
Never. A fraction of a cent error or a slight miscategorization in a supply chain routing system, it just looks like statistical noise.
Exactly.
Well,
Statistical noise. But agentic drift is what happens when those small autonomous actions or deviations compound across thousands or tens of thousands of automated actions in a matter of minutes.
it accelerates fast.
Right. So that e-commerce bot reacts to a competitor, drops the price by a fraction of a percent. The competitor's bot reacts and our bot drops it again.
And suddenly, that tiny drift becomes a runaway outcome.
Yep. The company just sold 10,000 units of high-end electronics for $3 each. It's like a ship whose navigation is off by half a degree. For the first few miles, you don't notice anything wrong. After 1,000 miles, you are crashing into the wrong continent.
That analogy is perfect. And it highlights why, in this second posture, trust is absolutely not enough.
You can't just trust the system.
You cannot just deploy a system, look at a benchmark that says it works reliably, and walk away. This loop lives or dies on three non-negotiable elements:
What are they?
observability, defined thresholds, and specific intervention mechanisms.
Okay, observability. But observability isn't just having a dashboard, though.
No.
It's knowing exactly what metrics indicate that the system is starting to drift before it hits the point of no return.
Right. You need the dashboard, but you also need a defined threshold where the system literally screams that it has crossed a red line.
And you need a big red button for the human to push to actually cut the power.
The circuit breaker.
Exactly. You are flying blind without all three. The human might be on the loop, but they are completely powerless if they can't stop the chain reaction.
And those intervention mechanisms have to be explicitly designed by humans before the system is ever turned on.
You can't figure it out on the fly.
Definitely not. If the system is executing 10,000 actions a second, a human hitting a manual stop button is often too slow anyway.
That's a scary thought.
It is. That intervention mechanism might need to be an engineered, hard-coded limit that automatically suspends the AI's access to the system if a certain parameter is breached.
An automated circuit breaker for the AI?
Yes, this points to the fact that agentic drift is not an engineering problem to be patched. It is an executive design problem.
An executive design problem.
Engineers can build the AI to follow instructions, but business leaders have to define where the thresholds of acceptable risk actually are.
Okay, so we have the editor keeping a tight grip on high-stakes judgment.
Yep.
We have the circuit breaker watching the systems and guarding against cumulative agentic drift.
Right.
Now we arrive at posture 3, the human out of the loop. Our research calls this the architect.
And this is what the general public pictures when they hear discussions about advanced AI.
Just letting it run.
True autonomy operating in the wild.
This is autonomy operating at scale. This is agents negotiating with other agents, agents transacting with software APIs, and optimizing against each other within predefined constraints.
Entire systems talking to systems.
No human is reviewing the drafts, and no human is sitting with a finger hovering over a circuit breaker button. The process is entirely self-contained.
And the real executive challenge reveals itself starkly in this posture.
What's the challenge?
Well, the hard problem here isn't technical execution. The technology is already highly capable of executing complex, multi-step transactions autonomously.
We know it can do the math.
Right. The hard problem is what the research calls classification discipline.
Classification discipline. Walk me through that.
Classification discipline refers to the ability to accurately define what is truly a routine decision versus what actually requires human oversight. It's about knowing what belongs in this fully autonomous bucket. Think about a robotic vacuum cleaner.
Like a Roomba.
Like a Roomba. It has true autonomy to navigate the living room, avoid the walls, and vacuum the rug.
It does its thing.
But you absolutely would not give it the autonomy to decide whether the piece of paper under the sofa is a piece of trash to be shredded or your W-2 tax form.
Okay, yeah. Good point. Grounding it in reality, the vacuuming is routine, but the document sorting is highly consequential.
Exactly. In a corporate setting, the stakes are just infinitely higher, but the logic is exactly the same.
Right.
Just because an agent can execute a decision technically does not mean it should.
And that feels like a massive trap.
It is a trap an alarming number of organizations are falling into right now. They look at a business process, they realize the AI is technically capable of doing it end-to-end without human input, and they immediately move it to the out-of-the-loop posture to save money.
Just chasing efficiency.
Yep.
The research actually provides a specific example that perfectly illustrates this trap.
Oh, the contract one.
Yes. Consider a contract renewal for enterprise software licenses.
This is a great example.
Technically speaking, a contract renewal is incredibly simple for an AI agent to execute.
Very straightforward.
It reads the terms of the new contract, checks the company's internal usage data to see how many licenses are needed, verifies that the cost fits within the allocated budget, and sends the legally binding renewal agreement to the vendor's AI agent.
The entire process takes seconds.
Seconds. The math and the administrative steps are simple.
But the strategic implications are entirely ignored in that automated workflow.
Exactly. Strategically, that renewal could be an existential decision for the business.
Absolutely.
What if the company is actively trying to pivot away from that specific software vendor because their security protocols are failing?
The AI wouldn't know that.
Or what if the CFO needs to drastically cut operational budgets this quarter just to keep the company afloat?
Right.
The AI agent just locked the company into a 3-year financial commitment because the budget field said, approved.
And the listener needs to critically evaluate scenarios exactly like that one.
It's dangerous.
Should an agent handle contract renewals? If an organization mislabels a strategic decision like renewing a massive enterprise contract as a routine administrative task, simply because the data processing is easy,
Then what?
they have made a catastrophic error in corporate governance. They have accidentally delegated executive authority to a machine without intent.
Delegated executive authority without intent. That's actually a terrifying blind spot.
It really is.
Because you aren't officially promoting the AI to a management role, but by letting it execute the math without oversight, you've effectively given it executive power.
You've given it the checkbook.
You are handing over the keys to the company vault just because the software happens to know how to turn the lock.
Exactly.
You didn't mean to give it financial authority, you just admired its efficiency at processing paperwork.
And that phenomenon is precisely what happens when organizations lack classification discipline.
They just misclassify the risk.
They let technical feasibility dictate their overall risk posture, rather than letting their risk tolerance dictate how they deploy the technology.
Okay, so taking a step back to look at the macro picture, what does this all mean for the organizations trying to navigate this transition?
It means a lot of unlearning.
Yeah, we have shattered the straight line myth of graduating away from humans.
Shattered it.
We have established the 3 permanent postures: the editor for high consequence judgment, the circuit breaker to manage complex systems and prevent agentic drift, and the architect for true routine autonomy.
Yes.
Given all of this, how should leaders be redefining AI maturity?
Well, redefining maturity requires a complete mental reset at the executive level.
A total reset.
AI maturity is absolutely not measured by how fast you can remove humans from the workflow.
It's not a race to zero.
It is not a headcount reduction metric.
Yeah.
And treating it as one will lead to systemic failures.
So it is entirely detached from the idea of how many people you eliminate from a given process.
Entirely detached. Maturity is actually about how precisely an organization aligns decision risk with the appropriate governance posture.
It's a mapping exercise.
Exactly. Ubiquitous agency, the idea of having AI integrated everywhere across the enterprise, does not eliminate the need for human judgment.
Right.
It demands much better placement of it.
You are taking human judgment and deploying it where it actually matters.
Where it counts.
You place it at the architectural level to design the systems, at the system threshold level to monitor for drift, and at the high-stakes decision level to protect the brand.
Precisely.
You aren't removing humans, you are elevating them to manage the complexities of risk.
And the ultimate warning from our research needs to be emphasized clearly here because it is the crux of the entire episode.
Hear it.
Without this deliberate mapped executive design, 2 things happen simultaneously in an organization. First, capability expands rapidly.
Right. The AI systems do more.
The AI systems will do more things, execute them faster, and integrate deeper into the business every single day.
So the capability grows exponentially, but what is the second consequence?
Risk compounds quietly.
Wow. Capability expands rapidly, but risk compounds quietly.
Quietly.
That is a sobering reality to face when everyone else is just cheering for faster automation.
Capability without risk alignment is exactly how catastrophic failures scale.
They just scale in the background.
They scale quietly in the background, out of the loop, completely unnoticed until they cross a critical threshold that a human wasn't watching.
Because they misclassified it.
And suddenly, a company is facing a massive systemic failure that seems to have come out of nowhere but was actually compounding for months.
So the companies that win this technological race are not going to be the ones who just automate everything blindly to cut costs?
Not a chance. The winners will be the most deliberate. They'll be the organizations that are surgically precise about where human judgment remains permanently, where oversight is strictly engineered with hard-coded thresholds, and where full autonomy is truly warranted based on risk, not just feasibility.
So deploying agentic AI is an executive design challenge, not an engineering feat.
Exactly.
That is a lot of complex architecture to digest, but it fundamentally changes how anyone should look at bringing AI into a workflow.
It really does.
It is never just turn it on and step back. It is an active, ongoing portfolio management of organizational risk.
It's a whole new way to run a business. And I will leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Sure.
Think about your own organization right now, whether you are working in a fast-paced startup or a legacy global enterprise.
Okay.
How many invisible decisions are being made by automated systems today where no one has actually mapped which loop they belong in? How many processes have been quietly handed over to a machine simply because it was technically possible, leaving risk to compound completely unnoticed, just waiting for the wrong threshold to be crossed?
That is exactly the kind of question that should be keeping leaders up at night. That's all we have for this episode.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for joining us on the Complete AI Guide podcast. Like, follow, share, and subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode. Don't forget to check out our website at georgeebbymatthew.com